In this video, we're going to start our very last section, and this is going to be on probability. So first of all, we need to talk about what do we mean when we say probability. So probability is going to be a number between 0 and 1 that shows the extent to which an event is likely to occur. So generally we use numbers between 0 and 1. You can think of them as percents. So the lowest a probability can be is 0, and that means there's a 0% chance of it happening. Okay, and the highest it can be is a 1, and that corresponds to a 100% chance of happening. So when you're looking at probability, you can't have anything smaller than 0, you can't have anything bigger than 1. So if we end up with something in the middle, maybe like 1/2, we can think of that as a 50% chance of it happening. So when we're doing probability, generally we write them as fractions, but you can also do percentages. All right, so we're going to find this by measuring the ratio of the favorable outcomes to the total number of outcomes possible. And as we mentioned, it can be written as a fraction, a decimal, in which case it'd be between 0 and 1, or if we write it as a percent, it would be between 0 and 100%. So we're going to look at probability determined from an experiment, which is an activity that has an observable outcome. So some of the things we might look at, we might flip a coin. So that has two possible outcomes. We could have, sorry, I didn't space that very well. We could have heads or we could have tails, so two outcomes. You could roll a die, where you could get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. Another common one is drawing a card from a deck. All right, so we're going to be looking at writing out the sample space. And the sample space is just a list of all the possible outcomes. Usually we use a capital S for sample space. So if I try to put a couple of examples down here, if we go back to the flip a coin, the sample space only has two outcomes. We usually put them in curly braces to indicate that it's a set. So I could write out the words heads or tails, or I could just write an H and a T, which is most common. So that sample space would only have two outcomes. If I was rolling a die, I would be looking at the number of dots. So I could draw the dots if I wanted. I'm just going to put the number. And then we just separate these with commas. So rolling a die has 6 possible outcomes. So to calculate the probability, we're going to look at the number of favorable outcomes to the total number of outcomes. So I usually use this notation right here. This is the probability of E occurring. So if I'm if I'm flipping a coin and I write this, I would read this as the probability of getting heads when I flip the coin. So I know if I flip a coin, only one side of the coin is heads, and there's two sides or two possible outcomes. So on the top we have the number of favorable. All right, so the number of outcomes that give me what I'm asking for, which in this case is to get heads when I flip. And on the bottom we're going to have the total number of outcomes. Okay, so in this class we're only focusing on outcomes that are equally likely. So we're not looking at loaded die or things like that. So each outcome has the same opportunity to occur. And so let's do a couple of easier examples first. The answers on a multiple choice test are A, B, C, and D. If you purely guess, what's the possibility of getting the correct answer? All right, so there's only one correct answer. If we count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 total choices. So the probability of just guessing the correct answer would be 1 out of 4. Okay, so this is your favorable outcome, so 1 correct answer. And then this is the total number. All right, so total number of choices. All right, so let's look at the second example. The letters for the word Tennessee are each written on a card and put in a hat. So one card has the T, the next card has the next letter, and so on. So one thing we need to do is count the letters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are 9 cards. So there are 9 possible outcomes. So the probability of getting an E. So I'm going to go through and try to find my E's. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So out of the 9 cards in the hat, 4 of them are E's. So my chances of drawing a card that has E on it would be 4 out of 9. All right, so the next one is the probability of getting T. I only see 1 T, so that probability would be 1 out of 9. All right, next I'm going to move to N. I see 2 N's. So the probability of getting an N would be 2 out of 9. And then I move over to S's. I see 2 S's. So that probability would also be 2 out of 9. So I have a 2 out of 9 chance of drawing an S.